So we're in a service meeting. I just got through asking one of my lead techs, what happened with that motor replacement? Why didn't the customer go for it? You know what he said? He said, the customer said it was too high. And I don't blame him. It was. What? Okay, so we had service meetings every Tuesday of the week. Mondays were just too hectic. Tuesdays, we would talk about the prior week's service and what happened. So one of my technicians, I had realized, didn't value our prices, didn't understand them. And that attitude transmits when he's giving the price to the customer as, here's your price. You get that? It may not be that extreme, but if your employees aren't on board, you're not going anywhere. So right then and there, I sat down and I did a breakdown of every cost of the service department, blended it into an hourly rate, blended in our overhead cost and everything else, and we come up to a rate roughly of about $100 per hour way back then, and we're talking years ago. And I turned to, we were the first to do flat rate, by the way, and this was part of the challenge. I turned to my techs and I said, our rates right now are $110 per hour, whatever it was. And I turned, and the technician that just got through saying we were too expensive looked at me and said, we need to go up. Home run, right? So the point is, the technicians have to be on board. Your employees have to be on board if your business is going to be successful. Now, if you're a one-person company right now, you start putting this thing together, and as you train your people, you start to implement what I'm going to share with you right now, so that as you grow, you don't have these challenges. But if you already have employees in position, in place, these are the steps that I recommend as you take in these new lessons. So where are we right now? Number one, we have identified something that's unique about you in a positive way. There's something about your personality. You have this personality. We have articulated it with something physical. It could be the hat you wear, a pipe. It could be, there's something unique about you that hopefully we can capture in a physical way, and we can blend it into everything visual with your company, including your logo, all of your commercials, and the way that your employees represent you. Okay, it's going to be in there somehow, some way, even if it's just on the side of your vehicle and on the uniform. There's something unique about you that none of your competition can ever copy, and that's what we want to accentuate, right? Then we're going to go into every aspect of your business and start to figure out how we can implement that, as well as any other better than average practices, best practices, that some of which your competition will already be utilizing, some of which they haven't thought of yet, and it is exclusively you, and that's what we want to focus on, right? But how do we get our employees on board? This is a big deal. If your employees are in, you're golden. If they resist you, you'll never know what they're doing, because you can't be there watching them all of the time, right? Think about this. When it comes to employees, what is more powerful or more important than the money? What is it? Studies have shown that the number one thing that employees are drawn to is being part of something, being important, being needed, being a piece to something bigger. So if you really want your employees to be part of this, you need to make them part of it as you create. Now, let me give you an example. We sat around and we talked about our vocabulary, and we came up with a list of a list of words, and we put it on a board and we kept it posted publicly. And these were the words that were no-no words. Words like the shop. The word shop, for example, creates a visual image that is not positive. But if we take the word shop and replace it with the service center, and this is the one that we used years ago. Whatever you decide to call your company is strictly your own, but come up with your own vocabulary and start training the guys and make it a competition and make it fun. So we got everybody together. Okay, shop is a word that kind of puts an image for our customers that looks like greasy rags laying around in an auto garage or something, right? what word can we come up with to replace the word shop? This sounds more polished, more professional, more like us, right? So you start there. Then you move on to the next word, right? And you continue until you eliminate these words from your vocabulary. Okay, so another one might be, the truck. We don't want to call our service vehicles trucks. We want to call them service vehicles. Let me check the truck and see if I have the part. Maybe the part needs to be replaced as well. Proper replacement part. See, what happens is, as you teach your team to speak at a higher level, your customer's perception becomes one of a greater value. They're going to appreciate you. They're going to consider you more professional than your competition. So the way that we did it, and I recommend it, is find 1 day per week in which you meet with each of your departments. Your office will be one department. The other departments, you'll want to make sure that you have time set aside for them. And I generally set about an hour aside. I combined my service and my installation because we were a small company. We had about 12, 14 people at our largest, and we were able to do that because we had cross-trained our guys and they needed to know both sides anyway. So we start to include them. Here's another example. Instead of a service contract, we used a service agreement. And then later we call that an energy savings agreement because it just sounded that much better, and it implied a value as opposed to something I've got to do, right? There's a return on my investment. If I invest in your service contract, it doesn't sound so good. But if I invest in an energy savings agreement, well, I'm going to have energy savings in return, and hopefully it will pay for itself. So this is the vocabulary that we want to develop. Now, the actual program you want to develop. I sat down with my team and I said, guys, listen, I want to come up with the best service agreement, contract, energy savings agreement that we possibly can. What can we add to ours that really doesn't bog our time down and put us back? We're out there anyway. What steps can we add that the customer can say, wow, the other companies don't do that, right? Or at least they don't perceive that they do that. What can we do? And so we put together an energy savings agreement. Okay, so we realized the importance of our employees' opinions on our services. So what we did is we made our energy savings agreement an employee benefit. So if you worked at our company, the energy savings agreement was a company benefit, and our technicians, our maintenance tech, would come out to every employee's house, and all of these steps would be taken on their equipment. So as an employee, they could actually go out in front of the customers and say, look, we've got the best maintenance program in existence. In fact, we called our energy savings agreement. It is so good that the amount that you pay is actually saved back in energy savings. It's a great program. I have one. They actually come out into my house and do it as well, right? So it adds ownership from that standpoint. So number one, they helped design the program because you included them in that. Number two, they actually participate in this. You see the power in that? Because your energy savings agreement, your maintenance programs are the one thing that add value to the customer better than anything else. That in a close second is extended warranties, and you want to consider that. We can talk about that on another module. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to take and include every department in the decision making. The way that you handle the phone, get down and get all the office together, and we're going to walk through what is it that we need to address, what issues do you have, and how do we make our answering of the phone and our customer engagement the best of anybody in town. I have a program together. We put programs together for that all the time. You can look at ours later, but in the meantime, develop your own. Come on, you can do it. You can just take and use a little bit of imagination and create something that nobody else is doing. How do you answer the phone? Like my company was Ramsey Services. Ramsey Services, I mean, everybody does that. It's a great day at Ramsey Services. That's better. Hey, this is Pete at Ramsey Services. How can we make you more comfortable? Cheesy, but it's something that's memorable, right? So be thinking along these lines. What can you do to make your that first impression over the telephone, I should say second impression. First impression is going to be online. We're going to talk about that big time. And then second is going to be when they actually pick up the phone and they call you and interact with you. unless they go to your website. And people do that, but typically people want it now because they're hot or they're cold, they're going to call, right? You got to give them a great experience. That's where it starts. So in every department, at every touch, every time you touch your customer, how are you at least 1% better than every competitor in your market? I'm going to tell you, when you add those 1%ers up, it really makes an impact in a positive way, and your reputation is going to be growing, and it's going to be snowballing, and before you know it, you're going to be overwhelmed with new customers at a rate that you're just not used to. It does work. So I want you to think about your vocabulary. I want you to think about your uniforms. I want you to think about your telephone experience. I want you to think about your logo. I want you to think about your vehicles. How does all of this transmit this feeling? How did you visually represent that uniqueness about you? How do we do that first? And then beyond that, we can do more of a generic warm and fuzzy feeling at every interaction, at every visual, every time they hear you, every time they experience you in person. How are you better at every area? And you must address every area if you're going to be thorough. Okay, so at this point, you're going to include your team and make them part of the decision process. That's better than money. Money comes next. I'll talk about that on the next module, right? We want to incentivize. If they're really part of the team, you want to incentivize them financially because you're benefiting financially. Come on, let's not be greedy. Spread it around. Take care of your customers, and they will take care of you. This is Pete Ramsey. I'll see you on the next one. See you then.